Welcome to Positive Light. I am your host, Joni Lane. We are here Mondays at 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time every week. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you LCM TV for having us here. And you were listening to music by Sam Houston from his Beyond the Crescent Moon album. And you can purchase this album either on his website at samhouston.com, or I have several copies of them here at my meditation center in Kelseyville, and you can purchase them for $10 at the meditation center. We hold meditation classes every Monday night at 7 o'clock. There is no cost. We are a nonprofit, so we run on donations. So whatever you can afford to comfortably give, we appreciate. We also accept donations from anonymous donors. In case you want to get really generous, we'd appreciate it. There's a lot of improvements that we're making on the property, and improving our gardens, and holding more classes, and inviting more teachers. So if you want to know anything about our meditation center, you can check us out on our website at apositivelight.com, or give me a call or an email. If you are a teacher or know of a teacher who has a positive message and would like to join me here on the show, please give me a call as well, because I'd love to have guests on. I don't have as many as I'd like, but we have had some wonderful guests on, and I'd like to add more. So let me know if you're interested in sending a positive message out to other people. So as I said, Monday nights at 7 o'clock we have our meditation every week. Tuesday, the second Tuesday of every month, we have 12 and Zen, which is based on the traditional AA 12 steps. And each month we progress to the next step. We have our traditional AA step. We also have a Zen practitioner's step and a societal normal step. And what we do on those is we meditate on the step of the month for about 10 minutes. And we kind of marinate our little minds with that step and see what develops. Then I will read a Buddhist koan which has been paired specifically with that step, and meditate on that for a while and see what comes up. Often the step kind of looks a little different after we've heard the koan. The koan is a story or a parable, and it helps us develop a deeper sense of identity with our steps. It helps us create a deeper relationship with our steps by kind of expanding what we thought our step was into something more. And then we'll share what we've come up with, and each of us comes up with something different, so we all learn something from each other. It's a really fun night. It's 7 o'clock every second Tuesday of the month, and that also is no cost, and it's donation based. And it's based on the book by Bill Krumbine, 12 and Zen, which you can purchase online either through an ebook or in a hard copy now through Amazon.com. If you're interested in sponsoring the show, please contact me. We are looking for sponsors. As I said, we're a nonprofit, so sponsors are welcome. I do try to keep the cost as low as $40 a month, where we can advertise each week for you, so contact me regarding that. I'm also a Reiki master teacher. Reiki is Japanese energy work. Reiki meaning universal life force energy, and I teach students level 1, level 2, which is first degree, second degree. I also teach master and teacher. I held a class yesterday with 3 new students in level 1. And it's an all-day class because you do get a workbook. You get a certificate of completion when you're done. And we learn quite a bit. And we practice Reiki on each other to learn how to use it, learn how to move energy. The Reiki energy itself it's unique. It's unique in the sense that it's similar to Qigong and Tai Chi and the other energy movements, but it can be very healing. And now the energy isn't healing itself, but it can stimulate your own body to heal itself. And it's very magical and very powerful. And I love sharing it and I love teaching it. The last Friday of every month, I hold a Reiki Healing Circle. And that is at 7 o'clock, last Friday of the month, 7 to 9. You do need to sign up ahead of time for that class because it fills up so quickly. So if you're interested in that, give me a call or an email and I can add your name to the list if there's any space available. As I said, it does fill up very quickly. But that's 2 hours of receiving energy. And it's a great experience. People enjoy it so much that they sign up quickly for the next upcoming class. So again, if you're interested in joining us for that, please let me know so I can get your name on the list, either for the upcoming month or perhaps one of the months following. The most exciting news I have is November 8th, which is when Kevin Griffin will be joining us at A Positive Light. He's written his new book, Recovering Joy. He's the author of One Breath at a Time, A Burning Desire, Buddhism and the 12 Steps Workbook. He has a musical CD called Laughing Buddha, and now his newest book, Recovering Joy, which can be found also on Amazon. It's been published by Sounds True, and he is a teacher that teaches all over the world and to audiences of hundreds and thousands. And we are so lucky to have him agree to come do a day-long workshop with us on Sunday, November 8th. I'm very excited about it, and it's very affordable. It's only $50. So please let me know as soon as you can that you'd like to join us for that class because it is filling up and space is limited. So please contact me, email me, call me. If I don't answer the phone, please leave a message. I will call you back. But again, it's only $50, so very reasonably priced. And he's a wonderful man. He's got great insight, really good information. And I just love the person himself. He has been one of my teachers for a while, and we learned from Jack Cornfield at Spirit Rock, who was a teacher for both of us. So he's a really, really cool guy, and I'd really like to share that with you. Each week, I try to provide a variety of different suggestions and ideas. And these are suggestions and ideas on how to improve the quality of your life. I try to bring different ideas that may help you find a way to release suffering from your life in order to allow yourself to open up to more happiness. I also try to keep things simple. Sometimes the teachings can get very involved. If you were to go to a monastery or a sangha and go to regular classes, sometimes they can be very involved and very convoluted. I try to keep things simple, and I try to keep the examples and explanations simple, not to talk down to you, but just to help make things easier so that you can have an easier time practicing these things in the beginning. And some of the things we talked about over the last few months are the Buddhist Four Noble Truths. And the Four Noble Truths are, number 1, suffering exists. Number 2, suffering arises from attachment to desires. And that can be your desire for something, your attachment to an outcome that you want to have happen. So you're already attached to a desire. And number 3, suffering ceases when attachment to desire ceases. And number 4, freedom from suffering is possible by practicing the Eightfold Path, or Buddhism, or the Way, or the Dharma. But in practicing the Buddhist teachings, you can learn how to let go of suffering. The other a group of, I don't want to call it a group, the other information I gave you is the 3 difficult practices, and that's noticing and acknowledging your behavior, noticing your negative behavioral habits. Number 2, doing something different, or finding a fresh positive behavior to replace the negative behavior. And number 3, making that a way of life. And we just got done with an 8-week series on the 3 difficult practices. And I have all of the television shows here archived on my website. So if you go to the website, apositivelight.com, there is a tab, television, TV archive shows, and you can watch those shows there if you're interested in learning on the 4 Noble Truths, the 3 difficult practices. And I would suggest going over them a few times, taking some notes, seeing if I say anything to you that kind of strikes a chord, gives you a different idea to look at. I really try to give as many examples and helpful advice as I can. It's just suggestions, but things that people have said have worked for them before, so I try to share that with you. And again, my goal is to try to help you find ways to create more happiness in your life, open up to more happiness, and release suffering. There's also a variety of mindfulness and meditation techniques. The meditations that we hold on Monday nights are a variety. We usually start out with 4 to 6 weeks of sati, or mindfulness meditation. We then progress on to metta meditation, which is loving kindness meditation. And then we'll go into vipassana meditation, which is insight meditation. And there's so many more meditations that I won't go in and list them all right here. Now, basically, what I try to do is help people see that you can learn how to let go of things that are not causing you happiness. They may not be causing you grief, but if they're not causing you happiness, you may want to let go of them. And you may not want to attach yourself to things that are making you happy, because as we know, everything is impermanent. And impermanence means it's not going to last forever. Being mindful also means to enjoy the moment of happiness when it occurs, making the most of it, because it is also impermanent. So if you're interested in learning more in-depth information regarding any of the ideas of meditation, please visit a meditation center near you. If you can't come to my Monday night meditations, there's definitely a meditation center somewhere near you, because they're all over the country and they're open to the public. You just have to either make an appointment or show up. If you're interested in joining us at a Positive Light Meditation Center to learn more about these ideas and suggestions, contact me, email me, phone me, look us up on the website, and let me know if you're interested in joining us. Or if you have any questions you want answered, just give me a call or email. I'll do my best to answer them. We are located in Northern California, about 2 hours north of San Francisco, in Lake County, California, in beautiful Lake County, California. And I love sharing Lake County with everybody because it's a little difficult to get here. You got to go over a mountain, but it's definitely worth it. So consider coming to one of our classes, especially Kevin Griffiths on November 8th. I'm really excited about that class. It's going to be a great workshop. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about mindfulness and fear. What is fear? Fear can be anger, anxiety, depression. Fear can manifest itself in many ways, usually not positive ones. And we can develop habitual patterns of behavior from our fear. And we live in the habits that are formed over the years, and the more we live in them, the more powerful and routine they become. And we don't even question them after a while. They become so routine that they're just part of our everyday life. And sometimes we walk around wondering why we're unhappy. But it's mostly because of the habits and routines that we've developed. And we live in a very scary world. So sometimes it's really easy to develop habits based on fear. Not all habits are negative. Some of them are very positive. But if the habits are causing you pain in any way, they're probably negative. Mindfulness meditation can be used for a variety of different applications to our everyday life. So mindfulness meditation is a very powerful tool to use. For instance, we often live in fear because fear is a natural part of being human. It's what helps us survive. Nature planted fear in us for a reason, and originally it was a survival tool. But sometimes we spin these stories in our head that are based on something small that we've turned into something very big. And it becomes so big we don't really know what to do with it. And we tend to believe the stories we spin in our heads, even if they're not entirely true. We have naturally, just society has taught us things like fear of rejection, fear of being ridiculed or judged, not being good enough, we won't fit in. Fear of being physically harmed is a real fear. Fear of impending loss, either real or imagined, such as losing a family member to illness or imagining that you might lose your job. So it may or may not be real. It could be something we create in our head. We can have a fear of becoming sick or a fear of death. We're all going to die someday. None of us is getting out of this thing alive. So it's something we need to look at. And in Buddhism, we look at death as just part of life. It's inevitable. And we don't need to worry about it. It's not here yet. We can't waste our time and the small bits of life we have worrying about death that isn't even here yet. All these things and other things can be very scary and very overwhelming. And they can cause a lot of anxiety. So how do you deal with them when that fear comes up? What do you do with it? Which is the number one question I get with people that have anxiety issues. They're usually, I don't know what to do with this fear. I'm really scared. I'm feeling anxious. I don't know what to do with it. And that's a legitimate point to make. You know, what do I do with it? That's a good question. If you're so used to living in fear, it's really hard to imagine what you can do differently. We only know what we know, and it's hard to create something new when we're not familiar with it. So in mindfulness meditation, we learn to sit in the fear. That's a different concept. When you turn toward the fear and sit in it, you can learn how to open up to it. And to sit with a spacious, open heart. So if you're actually being mindful of being afraid, feeling fear, feeling anxious, and you sit in that, and you lean into it, and you really allow yourself to be with it, sit next to it, open up to it, it becomes something different. And during the mindfulness training, you can learn to sit comfortably with it and just kind of accompany it. And you don't need to embrace it and become part of it, but you can sit with it. And when you can sit quietly in this loving awareness and create a spacious heart, you're also looking at your fear as part of being human. So you're opening up your heart to it, and you're accepting it. And it becomes something that's not quite so scary. And you're in a safe place. The mindfulness meditation is a really good tool to begin with to learn how to live with fear. A fear is something that's not going to go away, but it can become smaller. So in learning to look at the fear and accept it, you are looking at it as something, not something you want to rid yourself of, but you can look at it as part of your humanness, a part of your makeup, a part of who you are. And there's all kinds of pieces to us. We have our fear, we have our loving nature, we have our compassion, we have, there's so many different pieces of us that not one or another is better or worse. It just is. So if our minds start spinning stories that start creating fear and making it bigger and bigger, and it becomes overwhelming, of course we're not really going to be able to handle it. We're not going to know what to do with it. But when we learn to sit quietly and breathe in the moment and accept the fact that yes, I am afraid, yes, I'm uncomfortable, but it's okay. This is my humanness. This is part of being human. This is part of me. And then open your heart during the meditation and create some space and allow yourself to accept that part of you as you're human, another part of your being human. So it's actually embracing it in a sense, and you're actually learning to love this piece of you because it's part of who you are. And it's not bad. We just have to keep it in perspective and not let the stories spin it into something bigger than it is. So once you accept fear as a piece of you and something that we all share as humans, it can become smaller and just another emotion that you can sit with. You can become friends with fear, and it can become part of you comfortably. During meditations, you can learn how to comfortably live with fear. There is a difference between saying, oh, it's okay to be afraid all the time, and looking at fear as part of your humanness. Nobody wants to be afraid all the time, but it is part of being a human. And if we can look at it that way and accept that part of it, then it makes it much easier to live with it when it comes up. Becoming friends and accepting fear means you're accepting a big part of yourself. But also it's very important for you to know that fear does not define you, and befriending fear will not make it go away. So if you're looking for answers to how to make your fear go away, you need to be realistic and know that your fear is not going to completely go away. It is part of being human. But there is a point where you can look at it and say, my fear doesn't need to run me. It doesn't need to make my decisions for me. I don't need to be run by fear. But I can have fear in my life because it's part of my nature. It's part of my human nature. And gain some perspective by looking at it that way. And as you meditate, as you learn mindfulness meditation and learn to mindfully look at fear for what it is in a healthy way and not make it more than it is, it becomes much smaller, becomes easier to deal with in your daily life. And you can let go of that anxiety that comes along with it. And you can open yourself up to a little more space, and your heart opens up to a little more space where you can actually love that piece of you. It's hard to love the negative things, or what we call negative things about ourselves, but fear isn't necessarily a negative thing. It's part of our animal nature, and it's there for a reason. And it's an important part of being human, and it's an important part of our survival skills. So it's very important to love that part of us. So I think mindfulness helps us see the truth instead of the exaggeration of what we've may have made something out of in our spinning our stories and going on and on in our heads. We tend to make things bigger than they truly are. And fear is a very powerful emotion. So, since it's so powerful, many people use it to control us. And if we allow that to happen, then we're losing control of ourselves and we're losing part of our identity too. So again, learning to sit in your fear, learning to accept it, sit with it, look at it with an open heart, create some space around it. You can help yourself look at fear as a healthy thing instead of something that's too big and too overwhelming. So remind yourself that this fear, if you start getting this anxiety feeling and you're starting to tense up and you're starting to feel like I'm really getting uncomfortable and I'm really getting anxious, remind yourself to take a deep breath, relax, and to say to yourself, this is impermanent. In this moment I may be fearful, in this moment I may feel anxiety, but it is impermanent because this moment is gone and this moment is gone. Everything is impermanent, and we can allow fear to be impermanent. We can allow it in our lives, but we can allow it to move away too. We can allow it to be impermanent. We can let go of it. And it takes practice. It takes practice in mindfulness meditation. You are learning to practice in your daily life to let go of things that are not healthy and to look at each moment for what it is. If you're having fear, it's real, but it is impermanent. And it's important to remind yourself that it is impermanent. And you can breathe and come back to yourself. And remember that your fear is only as big as you make it, and that it's a good thing to have fear as long as you're not making more of it than you need to, and that it is impermanent. So I'm going to take a break here for a couple of minutes and we'll have a commercial. But think about impermanence in everything, positive and negative. And I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Thanks.
You're invited to participate in a true multimedia experience coming to a home near you. LCM TV is bringing Lake County into the new millennium with news, live broadcast, information, music, talk shows, and local programming, all streaming in high definition online and soon to be on your Roku box. Join us at lcm-tv.com or be a part of our studio audience. You can also watch the shows at lakecomagazine.com as we provide programming to inform, enlighten, and maybe even enrage you. On Lake County Magazine Talk Show with Terry and Pete the Tax Guy, Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. Joni Lane brings a positive light to you every Monday at 3 p.m. Pasha Space brings an international flair as they discuss ecological, health, and social issues in Haiti with people around the world. End up your week with positive, conscious sounds on Saturday at 9 a.m. with Sister T on the Bridge. This show is also simulcast on KMEC 105.1 FM in Ukiah. Our latest show, LCM TV News, is brought to you live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at noon, featuring national, regional, and local news, weather, and sports. We have it all here for you on your local TV station, LCM TV. Join us online and soon on Roku, giving you access to all the best Lake County has to offer. We are LCMTV.com, your multimedia connection. Tune in for the fun. It's live TV at its best.
Hi, and welcome back to A Positive Light. I am your host, Joni Lane. Before the break, we were talking about fear and mindfulness meditation, and how by using mindfulness meditation, we can learn to let go of thoughts. We can learn to let go of emotions that are a little overwhelming. We can learn to sit next to fear and be okay with it. And remind ourselves that if fear becomes so big that we don't know how to deal with it, we can remind ourselves that it's impermanent, that it does not define who we are. It's simply an emotion, and sometimes it's more an instinct. And when it's an instinct, it's telling us it's there for a reason, for our survival. So fear is actually a good thing. It's when it gets overwhelming that it becomes a negative thing. And so if it's not making you happy, if you have too much anxiety or fear in your life, then mindfulness is a great way to learn how to deal with it. Reminding yourself that it's temporary is important. Reminding yourself that it's impermanent is important. If we hope that things will change and they don't, we'll be disappointed and we suffer. So if we just hope the fear goes away and that someday I'll feel better, but you don't really do anything to make changes, you'll probably continue to be disappointed and you'll probably suffer. Which is part of the Four Noble Truths when we talk about suffering. Suffering exists, but we don't need to stay there. We don't need to just say, oh, okay, I'm just suffering, I'm unhappy, this is the way it is. There are things we can do. And mindfulness is a really powerful tool. When you learn how to use mindfulness in meditation, you can learn how to bring that into your daily life. Meditation is a really good first step in learning how to deal with your everyday life. And mindfulness is the perfect tool to learn how to do that with. Wanting life to be happy all the time is unrealistic. It's just not going to happen. And if you think it should be, then you're going to be disappointed. You're going to suffer. Acknowledging fear and looking at it for what it truly is and accepting what you can't change creates a relationship with it. So if you accept the fact that you will have fear in your life, but you don't necessarily need it to rule you, or you don't necessarily have to allow it to rule you, then you can create a relationship with it. And if you have a healthy relationship with fear, it usually stems from a better understanding of where it comes from and what it's all about. And in meditation, if you can learn to sit comfortably with fear and hold your fear in an open heart, then you can accept it as being part of who you are. It's part of your instinctive nature. And it's not a bad thing. But if you have a lot of fear, let's say something really upset you, and if you've had trauma in your life, you're going to be more easily step into fear than some other people might. But you can dissect it and look at it and see what it's really all about. See where it really comes from. And from doing that, you can see that right now, today, in this moment, whatever it was that triggered that fear is no longer present. That's past. That's already gone. You're in a new moment. You're older, and life is different. History rarely repeats itself when it's something big, other than mankind having wars, but that's something out of our control. I'm talking about things that are in our control. And sometimes when things happen to us, it's things like we're caught in traffic, people at work are making us mad, maybe we got fired, lost our job, maybe there was a restructuring and we lost our job. You know, there's things that we're afraid of because they affect our everyday life, just our daily survival. And when we make more of it than it is, and we start becoming fearful of things that could happen, we're wasting our moments on things that could happen. You may find that when you look deeply at fear, you may see that fear isn't exactly what you thought it was. Maybe you made more of the story in your head than it really is. And from doing that, you've made fear really big, and you're living in it. But if you sit and meditate next to it, and you really look honestly at it, it becomes smaller and it becomes easier to deal with. When you accept the fact that everything changes and we learn to flow down the river of change instead of fighting the current, you learn that life is more about the river ride and not about the fight to hold on to where you were. So, you know, the saying that life is like a current and a river and we got to flow with it is a very, very important statement, because from that we're learning that life is going on, whether we are participating in it or not. It's going to keep on flowing. If we fight it, if we fight it because we want something different, we're not going to get it. We're just going to get the fight. If we want to get the fight, we're going to get frustrated and we're going to become unhappy and we're going to suffer. That doesn't sound very pleasant. But if you learn mindfulness meditation, you can learn to sit in that discomfort, in that fight that you've created. And you can learn to identify what you've created and what is real. And when you let go of what you want that isn't real and allow yourself to flow along with the river, you'll notice that things seem to be getting okay. The less you fight things, the more okay they begin to get. And that's kind of scary, because when we're trying to direct our lives, we feel that we're in control. We feel that we know what we're doing and we know where we're going. And then something steps in and throws the whole thing off. And we really fight it because we really don't want that. And then we're just in a fight. We're in a very frustrating, scary fight because things aren't going the way we want them to go. When you get to that point and you sit there with that and you look at it for what it is and you open your heart to it and just accept it and stop fighting it, you start to realize that things begin to get a lot easier. Life continues to flow. You're flowing along with it. And you have some choices in direction, but you don't get to choose everything. And that's just the way life is. The more you can accept that, the easier it's going to get. I think the Western culture is a little more spoiled than some. We're used to getting our way. We're used to getting what we want. And we're used to immediate satisfaction. And when we don't get that, we get a little upset. Oh well, that's life. And you can either fight it or accept it. And I can tell you that accepting it's a lot easier when you know how to do some meditation and you have the tools of mindfulness to use. So that's why I really stress mindfulness meditation. It's such an important tool on learning to live life on life's terms instead of the way you want them. But often you're forced to deal with loss, and that brings up a lot of fear. There's a certain amount of grief and loss that must be felt and honored, but those feelings of grief and loss do not define you. It's perhaps you for those moments that you're feeling the loss, but this is also impermanent, and you need to remind yourself that. And life continues to unfold around you. And there's going to be times when there's a lot of joy, and there's going to be times when there's fear and loss. If you waste your time on this planet being afraid of the next thing that you may lose, then you are living in a fear that you've created. We could be using this time to be living in joy, but a lot of times what we'll do is we will create fear. And my allergies are attacking me. If we waste our short time here on this planet being afraid of the next thing that may happen, which we often do, we're really choosing to waste our moments. What it could happen. What if this does happen? Well, what if it doesn't? And now you've wasted all that time worrying about something that's not going to happen. By practicing mindfulness meditation, you're learning to be in the moment, and in this moment, and in this moment, and in this moment. And each of those moments is impermanent because now we've moved on to this moment. So each moment is created, and the way we have our relationship with those moments is very important. All those moments add up to our lifetime. By practicing mindfulness meditation, you learn that a thought will come up, and you can identify it and see it and then let it go. This is learning impermanence. Impermanence is a very difficult lesson to learn, even though intellectually we know what that means. It's very hard for us to accept it because we really want to be able to control our lives. We really want to have that rudder in our boat where we think we can control where it's going. And to a certain degree we can. But when things come up in life like death or loss of some kind that really is out of our control, we need to just accept it and process it and sit with it and hold it in an open, loving heart and realize that it is part of our life and it is part of our existence. It's part of our experiences here, and it's part of one of our moments that make up our lifetime. But it doesn't define who you are unless you allow yourself to get stuck in it. So teaching yourself to let go in mindfulness meditation, you're teaching yourself not to get caught up in the story that you can create that causes fear. So I hope I'm making myself understood, and I try to make sure that I say things in various different ways because the points are really important, that you understand that you do have the power to make choices of what you do want to hold on to and what you should be willing to let go of or what you can let go of. And some of the things we can't control, but they're true and we have to accept them, because if we don't accept them, that means we're going to fight them. And if we're going to fight something that is true and we want it to be different, we're going to cause ourselves a lot of unhappiness and suffering. I know that when I was a young mom, I had children at home. I worried about them so much. I'd let them go out in the park. I'd let them go play with their friends, or maybe they wanted to go have a sleepover at one of their friends' houses, and I'd worry and worry, well, what if this happens, and what if that happens, and I'm not there to protect them. And I would call my mom and I'd be really upset and say, I'm really worried and I have nightmares about it, and I lose sleep and I lose minutes of my day, hours of my day, worrying about things. What if this happened? This could happen. What if this happened? And finally my mom said, don't borrow trouble. And I didn't know what the heck she meant when she said that. I'm like, what do you mean don't borrow trouble? And she said, don't worry about things that haven't happened yet. It may never happen. You're going to waste hours of your life on things that may never happen. And if they did, you couldn't change it anyway. You'd have to deal with it when it happened, if it happened. But in the meantime, try to enjoy the good things that are around you. And that was really good advice. I think the world gets to be really scary sometimes. And as a parent, we see our children, innocent little beings, walking around in this scary world. They don't know much about it, but we do. So it can be very scary for parents. But life is so precious and so beautiful too that we don't want to stop our children from enjoying it and experiencing it. We need to guide them and teach them and tell them the truth about things for their own safety. But we also have to let them go out there and enjoy their life instead of walking around with a net of fear over them. So I really enjoyed the fact that I finally figured out what she meant. And I enjoyed the fact that she said that to me, because it put things in perspective, and I used that. When I would catch myself saying, oh gosh, what if this happens and what if that happens, I go, oh, wait a minute. It didn't happen. It may not happen. Life might be really good for them today. I need to just let them enjoy their life. And if something comes up, I'll have to deal with it then. And a weight was lifted off my shoulders when I finally got that, when I finally understood that. Excuse me. So when we worry needlessly, we're teaching ourselves a pattern of thought that does not benefit us. It becomes a habit. So when we learn to worry, which I was doing, I was learning to worry, we're learning to stay in that very unhealthy place. It becomes a habit. We wake up with the worry. It follows us throughout the day. It becomes part of our thinking patterns. It really starts to consume us, and we live in a very stressful place when we wake up in worry, dream about worry, carry worry with us through the day. It's fear based on something that isn't even real. It's fear based on something that could happen. And that's really not a nice thing to do to ourselves. So learning mindfulness, you're learning to be in the space of what is, not in what may or may not happen. And it's a much nicer place to be when you look at what is. Right in this moment, I have everything I need. Right in this moment, I have everything I need. Sometimes life is not good. Sometimes something will happen. But for the most part, life's pretty good. So learning to accept that everything is impermanent, whether it's good or bad, is an important part of mindfulness. Learning to let go is an important part of mindfulness. If we do our meditation and we learn our mindfulness, we can bring that out with us in our daily lives and learn to let go of things that are not healthy. Learn to identify things that are impermanent, that need to be reminded that it's impermanent. And just be in this moment, and in this moment, and in this moment, and accept it for what it is. It's usually pretty darn good, and I don't think we appreciate it enough. So for the next couple minutes, we're going to do a mindfulness meditation, and I will do some guided meditation for you. Mark will play Sam Houston's music in the background. And thank you for joining us today. I'll see you next Monday at 3 o'clock. And we'll take a couple of deep breaths and get centered. And you can keep your eyes open if you want to, or keep them closed. But if you decide to keep your eyes open, just focus on a space a few feet in front of you. Relax your shoulders. Relax your jaw muscles and your face. Paying attention to your breath as it fills your lungs. And notice your body relax as you exhale. Let go of any stress or tension that you're holding in your body as you exhale. And you can say to yourself, may I be well in this moment. May I accept each moment as impermanent. May I be grateful for each moment. May I be in each moment. May I be well in this moment. May I accept each moment as impermanent. May I be grateful for each moment. May I be in each moment. May I be well in this moment. May I accept each moment as impermanent. May I be grateful for each moment. May I be in each moment. May I be well in this moment. May I accept each moment as impermanent. May I be grateful for each moment. May I be in each moment. May I be well in this moment. May I accept each moment as impermanent. May I be grateful for each moment. May I be